Welcome to Senior Stay or Go TV. I'm Ron Greenwald with my business partner Patty Gerke, and I think today we have probably the show of the year. So if you're not tuning in, get all your friends now to tune in. As you know, Patty and I have created the field of life, and on the board today, I think we have, maybe we're going to move this assistant, we're going to make this assistant coach the coach of the. So Patty, please introduce our guest for today.
So today we have Elizabeth Mack. She's an RN MBA, and she founded the Holistic Caring in 2016, which is a concierge medical cannabis consultation service with clinical nurses helping educate, guide, and support patients with product choices, dosages, and timing. My understanding is that Elizabeth believes cannabinoid medicine offers our best chances at healing, comfort, and wholeness in a more holistic, economical, and empowering way. With that, I welcome Elizabeth. That we can't wait for this topic.
So Elizabeth, we've been talking before, so we're going to change this to a stigmatized product. I think would that be a good choice of words. So first of all, we want to know about who Elizabeth is and how you got to this space.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, so I'm Elizabeth. I do hail from Chicago, but I've been a nurse for 31 years, worked in nursing from 86 to 96, and then got an MBA in healthcare administration, went into insurance carriers, spent 19 years in those doing operations and then eventually sales, employee benefits. Pretty much every side of medicine and healthcare that you can arrange for, pay for, finance, and arrange. So basically, I got into a bicycle accident at the end of 2014. Went out on leave. I was the regional sales manager for Anthem Blue Cross. And I was implementing Obamacare. There were a lot of issues at the time, and I also had just become a widow myself. There was a lot going on. So for me, what happened was I ended up on the massage table at my chiropractor's office, and the woman was using CBD in the oils. So it smelled different, and I said, well, what is this? And so she told me about CBD and THC and the endocannabinoid system and how medical marijuana was medical. And I didn't know anything about this. And so I started to say, explain this to me. And before you know it, I'm meeting with her and her fiance, learning all about this. And I had a decision whether or not to go back to Anthem after that leave when I was having surgery. And I decided not to. And this is my pivot, my career changed into this.
Wow.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. So, and you just said, see you later, 401k, I'm out of here, and I'm going into this.
Yeah, essentially there was a lot of flux in health insurance at that time.
Right.
And so there was a lot of things that for me, it was a hard issue. It just became all about dollars and cents and benefits and compliance, and the art of providing for people was gone. And so when I looked into how cannabis worked as medicine, I also found a lot of deficiency, and nobody was really explaining this to people like me who didn't use cannabis recreationally, but I wanted to use it medically because I had a lot of healing to do in my own body. And so I wanted somebody to explain it all to me and couldn't find it from a medical clinical standpoint. So I'm like, okay, here's an opportunity. I'm an RN MBA, why not find something new to do? And people need this guidance. So once I figured it out for myself and how to wean off pharmaceuticals, then I wanted to lead the way to bridge the gap for others, to understand cannabis as medicine with traditional medicine and how to accompany both of them together.
Okay, we got a lot. We may be here for a couple of. This is going to be great. I'm all listening to it.
So what is the endocannabinoid system, and why do you believe cannabis helps so many different medical issues?
Well, from
obviously you started with yourself, but
right.
Since then you've probably seen much more than that.
Yeah, actually, so if we take my starting point from January of 15, I was on medicines for blood pressure. I know I look all fit and healthy now, but I was going through a lot back then. My husband was sick, and before he died, I was not in good shape either. So I had an antidepressant, an antihypertensive, something for sleep, a lot of Motrin because I had, this is my third shoulder surgery. I got ligament reconstruction, and so I've been on a lot of Motrin, muscle relaxants, things for migraines, you know, people are on more medicine than they know what to do with, right?
Pill
And
boxes.
yeah, before you know, and I was only 50, right? I'm 53 now, and I'm in better shape now than I was then. But I learned how to wean myself off of all of these medicines and find a way to use high CBD and microdose THC in a way that makes sense. And so what I've learned is the endocannabinoid system. Why does this work in the first place? It works because we have this system of receptors and signaling ligands, and it's basically just biology in our body, called the endocannabinoid system. It's called that because of the research into THC and CBD, cannabis. Once we found how cannabis worked in the body, we named this system the cannabinoid system, that we make endogenously these things that basically, if you imagine a lock, you're realtors, imagine a lock sitting there on the house, right? And you have a key. This is a special key, it's a master key, and it goes to all the receptors in the body, all through our brain, our spinal cord, our immune system, our nervous system. And when our system's not working correctly, the phytocannabinoids supplement, because this system has the locks that recognize both what our body makes endogenously and the phytocannabinoids that this plant makes. Somehow we ended up being hardwired for this plant. And so when we're not making enough cannabinoids to physiologically make our body work correctly, we can supplement, just like you supplement with vitamin D or B or any of the other things, or estrogen or hormones, right? It's basically supplementing on something that our body biologically needs.
So should we be supplementing on a daily basis?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Raphael Mechoulam, the guy that founded the science back in Israel, and by the way, all the research is happening in Israel, Spain, Australia, different places, because we're not really allowed to study it here in this country because it's a Schedule 1. Schedule 1, and this is why it's stigmatized and it's controversial. Schedule 1 means there's no medical use and that it's highly abusive. And we know that both of those things are wrong. It's got lots of medical uses.
When used appropriately.
When used appropriately, right? And so with CBD, the non-psychoactive side of this plant, should people be using it every day? As we age, as we have trauma and bacteria and viruses and immune deficiencies, we need to correct this. Nervous system needs to be corrected. It's neuroprotective. It bathes and cleans our bodies in a way that nothing else does. So a little bit of CBD every day is going to be beneficial for just about everybody.
Okay, so CBD is versus, what is it?
THC.
Yeah, so there's...
Well,
We'll get them to know by the end of this.
okay, I'm a real novice here.
That's okay. They're what we call cannabinoids. And so there's about 150 different cannabinoids in this plant. There's about 500 components in the plant. But the cannabinoids, CBD and THC, are the most prevalent. That's what they're breeding it for. THC is the intoxicating part. That's what people want to get high for recreation. CBD is more of what we call the medical miracle. And that is the one that's a very good antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and neuroprotectant to our body.
Okay, Patty's got a clavicle issue.
I subluxated my clavicle, so I am looking into the CBD actually.
Okay.
So.
What questions do you have?
Yeah.
Well, it's more so, is it going to be something that I intake orally? Is it something that I use topically? What would be the best? Because obviously there's no surgery for it. It was a fluke accident, taking off my jog bra, believe it or not.
TMI for that.
Yeah, and you know, I understand, my background's medical, so I understand that once those tendons and ligaments are stretched, I'm never going to be exactly the same I was before. But you know, can I get back to yoga? Can I get back on my bike? Can I do the things I love to do? Because you know, I'm an active person, so I'm not going to sit still.
Right. So this brings me to, you know, a lot of what I do at Holistic Caring on an everyday basis is how to put together what are your goals and objectives? What are the limitations? What are you dealing with? Where does traditional medicine leave you off? What have they done so far? And then what can the endocannabinoid system manipulation do for you? And how do you best utilize cannabinoids? And what are the modes of administration? So we talk about CBD and THC, right? So some CBD you're going to need systemically, first of all. So how do we lessen inflammation? Because that's probably the number one thing.
Cause.
You've got inflammatory things going on, and what's going on in the inflammation is that you've got a fire going on there. Basically, the body was putting out a fire at one time, but sometimes it remains, right? And the fire's gone, but the scene's not cleaned up well enough, and that's what CBD does. So CBD is like the traffic cops in there cleaning up the scene as best as possible and trying to resurrect the biology so it works right. And if we can trigger those lock and keys so that we can quiet the inflammation, then we can start to restore movement and circulation and nervous system functioning in there. So how do you take in the CBD? Topically is absolutely one option and a good starting point for especially seniors that don't want a systemic, so putting, in fact, as I was driving up 805 this morning, I was putting topicals on here because my shoulder's bad too. The 3 surgeries, so clavicle reduction with impingement syndrome release. So that was my first one that screwed up my body in 1993. So I was just 25 years old. And, and at the time when that one didn't work correctly, after they took an inch of my clavicle out, and they've completely altered the structure of my, so structurally it's all wrong. And so then they say, okay, you have fibromyalgia. Just take the Vicodin, take the muscle relaxants, for the rest of your life. This is what you have, right? And I should have never had the first surgery, obviously. But so I put a topical on once or twice a day to sort of quiet the inflammation, and this is a long-term thing. That's not something that is going to be like a one and done, right? It's
Nothing's ever a one and done because it doesn't happen one and done.
So, but then going back to systemically, I also take. I have a syringe of CBD that I just express a little bit out of the tip, lick it off, and let it melt into my mouth of pure CBD every morning. And that is my anti-inflammatory. Right, into the oral sublingual mucosa.
Mm-hmm.
And that
for those that
is where we would put a tincture. So what most people do is take a tincture. So you've got a little medicine bottle, you put half of a dropper, a full dropper under your tongue, let that melt in, swallow in a minute, and that's how most people take their CBD in an oral tincture form. So for your shoulder, you should have some tincture and some topical.
Well, it all started when I got a flu shot last year and they hit my axillary nerve.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's where it all started.
So, so let's talk big pharma, doctors. How, are you seeing is that the resistance, is the dollars and cents in terms of, or are we just
well, it's probably the federal regulations
the swarm,
as well.
it's just the army of people that want to legalize this and bring it to front and personal. Is that going to overwhelm that part of the world?
So advocates are big, right? So you've got advocacies that are saying, this is just a plant. Let's just diffuse all of the fears and just use it as a plant. Use it appropriately, but it's a plant. So it should all be just descheduled, let us have access to it. The clinicians on the medical side, they're saying, well, we haven't had research on this. We've had this prohibited literally for 80 years in this country. So we don't know the clinical pathways. We don't know how to use it. And when you have people that are generally perfectionists that want clinical pathways, they want data-driven, evidence-based protocols. They don't have that. So they're uncomfortable saying, go ahead and have access to this. So you've got this dichotomy of these people that are just like normalize it, and you've got the clinicians that are like, we don't have the data. So companies like mine and a lot of other people, a lot of cannabis nurses, we're rebels, we're pioneers, right? We're saying, you know what, we're going to lead the way, and there's plenty of people that are on the scientific side that are doing research. If you go to PubMed, you've got over 25,000 articles on cannabinoids and cannabis and CBD and THC.
All over the world.
All of the world research. It's right there on PubMed. So just go there and you can just look up cannabis and your condition and find all the NIH studies that have been expressing how this works. But again, so we've got the studies, but nobody is saying, okay, here's how to clinically apply that, which is what holistic caring does. We say, okay, here's where traditional medicine leaves off and the inadequacies of it, and here's what cannabis medicine can offer. Here's how to bridge the gap and use them sometimes synergistically, and then sometimes complementary, and then alternatively. So as I weaned myself off of the medicines that I was on, what dosing do you need? And then here's what a lot of people don't have patience, right? Because this is not a one and done. This is this is reshaping biology, so it takes time. And so people are used to, you take 5 milligrams of something 2 or 3 times a day, you're going to have XYZ result. This isn't that simple. And so people have to have patience, time, and money. Money is the other thing. None of this is covered by insurance.
Right. So again, playing devil's advocate, how do we, I mean, it's just going to be like alcohol, where we don't let the 18-year-old, the 21-year-old buy it, or I mean, in terms of driving and recreational, how do you see that playing out in what you're doing?
Well, so the rules are, so for recreationally, it's 21 and up, and medical is 18 and up. But you know, seniors, it doesn't matter. They're all legal. But you know, and so
that's
then
the benefit of growing old.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so then it just becomes how do you buy this? How do you buy this medicines? So there's 2 main access points. There's the dispensaries. And most of my clients, I have a voicemail saved from somebody who's like, I went to this dispensary you told me to, and I had to go through this metal detector, and there were guys with guns, and there was a bulletproof glass where this lady wanted me to hand her my documents, and it was very intimidating. So a lot of people don't want to go through that. So there's delivery then that are set up also. So what we arrange for is we help the people figure out what to use and how to take it, and how to titrate their medicines, and have it arranged so that it can be brought to them, so they don't have to go through that system. And a lot of seniors can't travel either. So
Right.
you know,
The webinar that we were on, they had a senior on an electric scooter who got to the dispensary, and then his battery died, and they had to go pick him up because he couldn't get back.
well, he wouldn't be the only one that's getting Uber from the dispensary. Yeah.
So again, so take us through a typical client. They're 85 years old, I assume, and they're complaining about arthritis, and
Or they have that plethora
they have
of
that
pills that
pill
they've
box
been
that's
taking.
the size of Texas, and you're just trying to wean them off of that.
Well, right. I mean, for seniors, a lot of these people a lot of them are on the same meds. Yeah, they're on Norco or Oxy or something for pain, at least Anaprox or Motrin and NSAIDs, right? And so what is that doing? It's giving them dizziness, disorientation, constipation,
All the things they fight.
stomach bleeding, renal issues, right? And then they're on Ambien or Klonopin or something for sleep, Xanax.
Or Zoloft or something else for
right,
depression.
Antidepressants, of course. Then they're on gabapentin. I can't, tell you which 80-year-old is not on Neurontin, because they have neuropathy and nerve pain, right? So then they're also taking something that for all the nausea, and they're not eating, so they have Zofran and Megaze. And if you've got an 85-year-old, the odds are they're going to be on Seroquel, Risperidone, because they're on antipsychotics now, because they're having memory issues and they're agitated. So all of those pharmacy, right? This is
Look forward to.
right. This is every day, right? And so what happens is you can replace all of those with some properly functioning cannabinoids. By lessening the inflammation, turning down the pain signaling, you absolutely need THC, but a base of CBD is going to restore some of the biology that is going wrong and calm some of that agitation so that people can sleep. I can't tell you how many times I get great pride in working together with their doctors. Their doctor has to be involved, right? So you mentioned Dr. Bob. He's one of my best friends, and I have access to the software where I can see what the patient is taking, and we can have conversations about when we remove Seroquel and Trazodone and Ambien and Norco, and right, because you have to have both sides of the
My mom
treatment
was
plan.
on all that.
Right. Yeah.
So if it's a somewhat confrontational doctor, that say if that client gives you the HIPAA release, or what release would it need to be necessary to get you that access to that information?
Well, they have to call me and ask for my guidance, and basically what I do is work as a consultant and an educator. My role is to really educate on how this works, how to keep them safe, how to integrate, how to initiate, how to titrate, and when to start to make those other modifications. And a lot of times I'm working with care managers that are on the side of the senior that says, okay, Elizabeth, here's what they're taking. And so let's take diabetes. Metformin is a drug that I just found out was completely removed from one of my clients in Point Loma. And why? Because you know what? cannabinoids can improve insulin sensitivity and reduce circulating glucagon levels. So we can start to normalize blood sugars. One of the things that I set up with people is a tracking log. So we have these gauges, what I call gauges. So imagine your dashboard, right? What are the levels of pain when we start, 1 to 10? Where's our anxiety levels? How much are you sleeping? What are your energy levels? What is your memory, your focus like? Starting out, and where are we going to get to? What is your mood, your joy, your levels of, how easy is it to smile today? And let's track on where that is a month from now. But also blood pressure and blood sugar, because both are impacted. Cannabinoids are vasorelaxants, so your blood pressure can start to drop as you take this. So that's one of the pills that we can start to reduce, as is blood sugars. So people that are on insulin and things like that, we need to watch those, because cannabinoids will definitely impact that.
That's awesome.
So again, this is almost like part of your physical. It should be talking to you.
It's biology.
Okay, I want to give out the phone number on this call. 619, can I give this number out?
Sure.
619-880-5135. 619-880-5135. And for Patty and I are huge advocates of Dr. Bob and the whole naturalistic way, because again, Patty told you a little bit about her background, and my dad had a pill box the size of Texas, the last 10 years of his life. Oh, I forgot to take this one? Okay, I'll take 2, or whatever the case may be. And it killed me. I mean, and of course, the doctors were saying, let's just go for it. And there was no logic to the whole process, and it was just really hard.
Well, and it seems like, unfortunately, with seniors, like you mentioned, they're on one of a multitude of things, only because one thing leads to another, to another, to another, to another, and it's like they take this pill to get rid of this side effect, but then it gives them this side effect. So then we need another pill to get rid of that side effect to take.
Yeah.
And it's.
And really, what's the efficacy of all of that, right? Is it really working? At the end of the day, people call somebody like me and cannabis is an option because nothing else is working. So it's not like the polypharmacy is serving them. And in fact, once you start to remove some of those other pharmaceuticals, you start to remove the delirium. Maybe they don't need the Seroquel and the risperidone. Maybe it's the complications of all of these interactions. And, that's not what we're, one of the things, I have an MBA in healthcare administration. I see things from a systems level. And honestly, what we need to do is start to look at the quality of life. I can impact a quality of life for one of my clients better than these pharmaceuticals, and in a natural, holistic way, so that, especially end-of-life care, these people that are on all of these drugs are not very present with their families. They're still in pain, but yet they're confused. They're doped up. And so if we
they're completely out of it on morphine.
Yeah, if we can start to remove doses of opiates and benzodiazepines and some of the other pharmaceuticals, then they can start to have more presence and more heart space open. This is body, mind, spirit. It's not just body. Right. Their mind starts to open up again, and their spirit is now live versus doped. And it's precious to do this work and see the way that we impact quality of life in all of the different realms, and in places where traditional medicine can't. In the autoimmune conditions and the neurological conditions, and people that have cancer, how do we get them to be more present on less of the morphine, but also be able to share a meal with their family? People that lost their appetite, we can start to get them hungry again, and have their digestive system start to calm down and work better, and have them start to sleep. And that's
I've seen that firsthand.
That's priceless.
I've seen that firsthand. So speaking of that, I just lost my train of thought, but you mentioned having them more present and being more present at the end. So my question then is, have you had the opportunity to work with any hospices? Mm-hmm. Because that is who brings in the morphine.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's complicated. It's complicated because what happens is when people are on hospice, they're generally in an institution or a facility, and facility-based care is definitely something that is not normalized with using cannabis right now. So in private homes, it's okay because we have a caregiver, we have a family, everybody's supportive. But in a facility, it's difficult because people don't necessarily have access to their own control of their own medicines, right?
Sign the contract.
Provided, right? And so you got a med cart, and the way that we're seeing cannabis in this country right now on that med cart is, can it be counted with their narcotics? And when we're talking about liquid bottles that don't have markings on the outside of the bottle to prevent diversion from the staff, a lot of this doesn't come in pills yet. There are capsules, but they're expensive, they're hard to get. And dosing is not necessarily cut out for seniors. It might be for people that are treating high pain conditions, so a little bit too much for them. So liquid medicines are where we're going, and so hospice is not that. Hospice, assisted living, skilled nursing, those are not that approachable at this time. Once it's rescheduled, and by the way, FDA is accepting comments on the website. If you go to regulations.gov, you can weigh in on whether or not to legalize CBD. I wrote in, and so my comments are there that CBD needs to be completely descheduled, and cannabis should be at least rescheduled so that it's a lesser schedule so that we can study it.
Is there a petition on the, let's form a petition?
Absolutely.
Get a couple hundred thousand?
So that's what the FDA and DEA is seeking.
I mean, you would get pretty fast.
But you would think, okay, that they could easily do a number of things to regulate the amount, the liquid amount. You can have an eyedropper that will only intake a certain amount.
Well, right,
you can have a syringe that has markings on it that only releases a certain amount. There are ways to deliver liquid in a limited amount.
Yeah, and all of those are in use today. But the problem is, ideologically, it's still non-palatable to the administrators of these homes because of the Schedule 1. But however, not only is the DEA and FDA going to reschedule CBD, because Epidiolex was just approved. Epidiolex is our first cannabinoid medicine that was scheduled in September as a Schedule 5. And this is for the kids that are having intractable epilepsy and seizures. So GW Pharmaceuticals is a company in Great Britain that has made this medicine, and it is a full spectrum cannabinoid hemp. It's a CBD oil, so there's no THC in it. But it's approved, and it's going to be starting to sell in this country very soon. And here's the other thing. There are a lot of reports that Trump is going to reschedule cannabis federally. After the midterms. We're not doing anything until the midterms are over. But once he reschedules cannabis, Canada
it's pretty much of a
Canada just got a free-for-all recreationally, right? And so they have to do something in this country. So imagine if it's rescheduled down to even a 2 or a 3, we could study it, and clinicians could start to dose it in this country.
So is there are people from all over the country reaching out to you? Because you are. They put a crossword puzzle, because that is a lot. It was amazing. So, are people reaching out to you from across the country? Because this is fascinating.
Well, right. And so what we do is mainly what I used to go see people in the homes all the time, but I can't clone myself enough to be able to consistently do that and maintain my sanity. So we work remotely by phone a lot of times. And so I can do consults nationally, and so can my other nurses, by tapping into the dispensary that is near them. So we have 30 medical states and 9 recreational in this country right now. So there's plenty of playground so if I have a client that wants to use this in Colorado, I can go into Weed Maps or Leafly, find a dispensary that's near them, and say, here's what you go pick up, and here's how you take it. So yes, I can work nationally.
And then are there others like yourself across the country that you network with and learn from and share information?
Yeah, so there's something called the American Cannabis Nurses Association.
So
ACNA. So ACNA is very active. There's about 700 nurse members now across the country that are also kind of renegade pioneers that are doing this dosing. A lot of them are working in hospice and palliative care already, and they're just trying to teach patients. And a lot of these states have a very rudimentary system, so it might just be smoke a joint, right? But you might have access to it, right? They don't have all the medicines in the candy shop that we have here in California, so you have to work with what you get.
So give us your long-range prognosis of where this goes. Do you really see a revolution coming?
Absolutely.
And you're going to be in charge of it.
Yeah, I see there's a major paradigm shift happening because pharmaceuticals, the system right now is broken.
Absolutely.
And here's the other thing, from a cost-benefit analysis, going back to my MBA in healthcare, if you were to map out financially what the costs are of these pharmaceuticals versus you know, the cannabinoid pathways that are available and what those costs are, it's dramatically lower. Even with Epidiolex, they're launching that at $35,000 a year in an annual price tag for a kid with seizures, right? You could go and get almost the same thing at a dispensary for $150 a month. You know, but people don't know about this option. And when we open the veil and show people costs on what you're spending for those medicines that aren't helping you versus what the cannabinoids can do, and that the efficacy is better, the safety profile is better, I should mention that nobody has ever died from cannabis. There are no CB1 receptors, what THC goes and not the lock and key, what it targets in the body. There are nothing in the brainstem that can take in this medicine, so there's no lethal dose. There's no way to overdose. You can take too much and do stupid things, yes, but you can't die physiologically from this medicine.
Well, gosh, this has been eye-opening. I'm like, whoa! I'm calling you after that. So we've gone along. We've gone pretty long, right? I don't know.
We've got 10 minutes left if you want to keep going.
Oh, okay. Well, give us, Patty. I mean, gosh.
Well, I think, you know, when you say the efficacy, the dosage, all those things, I think sometimes people have the bad perception in their mind because they were at a party where somebody did take too much or smoked too much or whatever and did a lot of stupid things, and they're like, how can that possibly help when that idiot just, you know, fell down the stairs because they weren't managing it? But you're talking about manageable quantities that are specific to the needs, that are monitored. And I mean, just the fact of, you know, mentioning the risperidone and the trazodone and those antipsychotics. My mom was on all that stuff. And to be honest with you, when we took her off of all of it, she was better than being on it.
So let's talk about, you know, the different effects. And so honestly, when Meshulam started studying this back in Israel in the 60s, his wife, they got 5 kilograms of cannabis hash oil from the NIH so that he could study it. And his wife made brownies. And he gave the brownies to all of the people that they wanted to study. And some people were laughing hysterically. Some people were anxious and paranoid. Some people didn't feel a darn thing. Some people got really tired. Some people got angry. So what is this? How is this one substance made exactly the same way affecting everybody differently? And that goes back to the endocannabinoid system. This is the lock and keys in our body and how we respond, how we uptake this medicine, right? So there's a variance, and everybody's going to have a different experience, which is why you need to have a starting point that is low and slow and titrated very, very carefully. And what we do is teach people how you take CBD, and that should be sort of like the building blocks of where we start with. You use THC very specifically in very low doses so that you don't trigger that anxiety, that euphoria too much. You want a little bit of euphoria. Of course, a lot of people that are sick absolutely need their mood picked up. But you don't want and cannabinoids are biphasic. So a small dose does one thing, a large dose does the opposite. It's not linear. Right? So 5 milligrams and 10 milligrams might do completely different things. And so what my job is to explain all of this to people, to start them at something that is almost a subtherapeutic dose and begin to escalate that dosing very slowly and cautiously so that they just start feeling better without feeling high. You know, my slogan is heal without the high, because you can do this. As you expose the biology to healing, you can go up. Now, for people that want that high, they go to the dispensary and say, okay, give me 20 milligrams of, you know, something, and I want to go have that little trip.
Yeah, they smoke it or vaporize it.
So that leads me to the question, like, there's obviously good cannabis and bad cannabis. Would that be a fair statement? So are you selecting, I'm going to buy it from XYZ dispensary versus ABC dispensary because one's better than grown differently?
Cannabis is, well, first of all, it should all be grown organically, biodynamically as much as possible. Everything should be seed to sale, track and trace, lab tested. They need to make sure that there's no pesticides, fungi, molds, contaminants, yeasts, and that any of the extraction methods, the ethanols and things that are used, are all removed so there's no residual solvents. So all products should be safe and tested for quality and potency. But as far as where I drive traffic to, who is really doing medicinal quality? That's the difference. There are companies, there's a Firebird Touch Therapy here in town who makes ethanol extracted medicine. that is craft, right? There's Akasha that I love as far as craft cannabis. So almost like craft beer, there's craft cannabis that is made to be medicine. And then there's the stuff that's being pumped through the dispensary, Papa and Barclays, Care by Design. A lot of these are a little bit, when you're making millions of them versus hundreds, there's a difference. There's a different attention to detail. It's more about profit margin. And when you go to the dispensaries, you know, they're not spending what the cost of goods are for the traditional medical, the delivery dispensaries, right? So the quality is very different. I'm hoping, and the recreational market has really skewed everything. Everything has just become about branding. It's all about the fun. It's all about, you know, how do we make the most money? And the little guys are all being shut out. So the craft is going away because they're not able to pay to play. Now, I would love to have a dispensary for seniors only, and if anybody's listening out there that wants to give me $5 million, that's the starting point for what I need in reserves, because you have to pay exorbitant rents. If you're in a green zone, 1,000 feet from any schools and residential areas, that building now that would have been, let's just say, $10,000 a month rent, it's going to be $50,000 a month.
What about
rent.
a grant?
Well, yeah.
$5 million government grant for.
Yeah. And then, okay, so now let's also go to the other aspect of seniors. Can they afford my guidance and concierge care? A lot of times, no, because, you know, that's unapproachable.
fixed
And then the medicine itself, you know, I have to tell people, you've got to be able to spend probably $150 a month in disposable income before we start. So I almost have to financially qualify people to be able to take this option. These medicines are not cheap.
And then when you titrate someone to the appropriate levels of dosages, do you do that just by responses, or do you do a blood test? Do you?
It's all gauged on physiologic response. So that's
Okay.
why I have the tracking log.
Got
Where
it.
are we at on the pain, the anxiety, the sleep, the blood pressure, blood sugar, your mood, your memory, your focus? If you're getting too much THC, your impairment and your thought is going to be prevalent. If you're getting just enough, we can peak it. So we can get some people with very low dose THC to have better cognitive reasoning and reducing the anxiety and agitation, especially with Alzheimer's. You know, when do you start to be able to wean off of those Seroquels and Ambiens and Ativans, right? Because, you know, and so this is why you have to be dialed in and monitor. It's all based, there is no blood test. There's no blood test to determine endocannabinoid deficiency, which we know is prevalent with autoimmune conditions. There's no blood test to figure out what the mins and maxes are. But clinicians like me do know those parameters and can help people figure it out. Unfortunately, the 23-year-old behind the counter at the dispensary does not.
No.
And they're going to tell you how to have a good time.
Exactly.
Well, Elizabeth, let's wrap this up by tell us who you are again and your company and how to get a hold of you, and let's ramp this thing up.
Okay, so I'm Elizabeth, founder and CEO of Holistic Caring. You can reach us on the website, holisticcaring.com. My email is info@holisticcaring.com, and our phone number 619-880-5135.
And do you have a consultation situation that you'll?
On the services page on the website, you can sign up for either an initial visit in person, which is at my office at Lotus Rain Naturopath Clinic in Claremont, as well as remote consultations. Pricing is $300 and $200 for a 30-day process. Basically, I help people initiate and get used to this and start to understand how to work with the system, set up those gauges and monitoring, tracking, and then I have a fast and friendly where people are using cannabis already, but inappropriately. It's not effective for them, and so I have a $50 consult where I'll spend 15-20 minutes with you on the phone helping you dial that in.
Okay, so now when you get back to your office, there's a line wrapped twice around the door.
All right, well, that would be good. Thank you so much for the opportunity
Elizabeth,
to speak
thank
to your
you
audience.
so
Thank
much.
you
It's
so
been
much.
I think, Patty, you're signing up.
Yes, I am.
Signing up, because if I hear about the clavicle. Anyway, Ron Greenwald, Patty Gerke, Senior Stayer, Go TV, we thank you so much for listening. And what am I looking at? Oh, that camera. Hello over there. Thank you, Senior Stayer, Go TV. Have a great. This is the end of October. Have a great Halloween. Going into the holiday season. We wish you well, and please try to get off all those medications. Call Elizabeth today, and let's change the dynamics of how we think about all this. Have a great day, everybody.